Welcome to episode number 14 of the Road to Cinema podcast, featuring one of the co-writers of the new film Birdman, Alexander Dinelaris, directed by Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu. Birdman is the story of Regan Thompson, a washed-up movie star who decides to mount an ambitious stage play on Broadway while seeing visions of Birdman, a character he played in multiple superhero movies in the past. Brilliantly played by Michael Keaton, Regan Thompson goes up against his co-star Edward Norton, a theater veteran, along with Zach Galifianakis, his business manager, and his daughter, played by Emma Stone. On today's podcast, we discuss the development of the script, which included co-writer and director Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu, Alexander Dinelaris, Nicholas Giacombane, and Armando Bo, and the challenges both for the actors and crew of the long takes in Birdman, which would sometimes go up to 10 minutes in length. For more information on the Road to Cinema podcast, to read the Road to Cinema blog, and to watch our Road to Cinema YouTube series, please visit jogroadproductions.com, and you can follow us on Twitter for the latest updates at jogroad. And now we join our conversation with screenwriter Alexander Dinelaris as he discusses the creation of Regan Thompson as a character, and the innovative production style of Birdman. I wanted to ask you about the development of Regan Thompson as a character and how important that was in crafting the entire narrative of Birdman as a whole.
You mean Regan Thompson as a character?
Yeah, as a character, and also even having the idea of using Michael Keaton in that part.
Well, it wasn't. People have asked us whether we wrote it sort of with Michael Keaton in mind, which really wasn't the case. Honestly, we knew the script, we wrote the script, we were well into the first draft when we started talking about potential actors for the part. And when Michael's name came up, it just was a really sort of perfect fit, but in retrospect, I know sometimes given the content, people find that hard to believe because of the sort of Birdman, Batman parallels, but it really was the case. We just said, we were at a table, and the four of us, Alejandro, myself, Nico, and Armando, and we were just talking about it for the first time as far as, the idea of casting was, and we, it just came up, and I was, it would be perfect for this as Michael Keaton because, one, he's immensely likable as a person and an actor. Two, he has the history that comes with this. Three, he's got a brilliant sense of humor, and sort of no matter what he does, you could still have the audience on your side. And we knew that Regan was we're gonna do some questionable things and say some questionable things, and we knew Michael would win the day. Now, in the end, we couldn't have predicted how perfect he would be. Because I think if you ask any of us, we don't imagine this movie is nearly as successful without Michael in that role.
Yeah.
So that was just one of those really fortunate, not accidents, but fortunate happenings that he was available, that he liked it, and he was interested, and the match was so good.
Did the narrative of Birdman sort of emanate from the creation of Regan as a character, or did you kind of have the conception of the world of theater and going through the play as the beginning of when you started crafting the story?
Yeah, well, Alejandro was very clear on this was really a matter of form following function, and Alejandro had a very clear idea about doing a film in one take. That sort of adrenalizing view. From that, he came up and said, that the theater would be an interesting place, and I agreed because the theater has that sense of being live, and we knew in long takes the sort of dialogue, the metaphor of the theater was going to work very well. From there, Regan Thompson was born, and then I think Alejandro said in interviews, and I think what we were all examining in our midlife, range, Alejandro and I, mid to late 40s or 50, he's 50 now, I think, and this was going to be about us sort of ruminating on our own mediocrity, and it was going to be a story about ego. So from there, Regan was born, and then we were trying to think of the possibility of alter egos, which we've been through a couple of iterations of, and then finally settled on this superhero because it seemed to be the perfect metaphor for what we wanted to say. And that's how
Yeah, I was going to ask you about those long takes, and also I believe you had the opportunity to be on the set of Birdman while it was shooting, and while you were on set, did it seem like you had to sort of modify scenes based on the parameters of the location, and also too as far as the pace of the actors, because there isn't really the opportunity to edit a scene like you would normally with coverage. So the pace of the actors is really so important that they're on top of each other in the lines.
I mean, this is a matter of, I don't mean to sound, pedantic about it, but it's just a matter where you surround yourself with incredibly talented people. In this case, the actor, as you can see, to a man, are just an incredible, and a woman, are an incredibly talented bunch of people and have a real sense of comedic timing as well as dialogue timing in general. We knew in the process of writing it, since it was going to be continuous long takes, that most of the editing, at least writing-wise, not film-wise, because the editors of the film did a magnificent job, but at least the writing part of the editing process had to be done early, because we knew that 95% of what we wrote was going to end up on the screen. What Alejandro did was he went through with Chivo, and they went through a 3 or 4 week rigorous camera rehearsals. So we had the advantage of knowing where the camera was going to be, so we could lay out the dialogue so we could bridge better. And then when we were on set, adjusting to the sort of genius of Zach Galifianakis and Michael and Emma and the whole brilliant cast, it was slight modifications, because the camera was already going to do what the camera was going to do. So there wasn't a lot of room for change. You know? And as you said, you're writing scenes where you're not going to edit later, so you have to live with what you have, and you're never perfect. And now when you watch it, Nico and I'll watch scenes and be like, I wish we could have cut that down or changed that, but there's nothing you can do. That's life living on the tightrope, as Alejandro calls it.
Yeah, well, what's really incredible about those long takes is that the actors are really like word perfect. They have that rhythm going, and I believe there was even like a long rehearsal process that went into it before the shooting of the film.
Yeah, exactly right, and they did. And that's where it's very similar to a play. They were doing 8-9 minute scenes and full of dialogue and fast dialogue and they just, sometimes people get your language and sometimes they don't. In our case, I do most of the dialogue because, well, among other things, I'm a playwright, but English is my first language. So sort of sharpening it up and polishing it would fall to me. And then you want your actors to sort of get rhythm. And boy, I mean, our actors were fantastic. They just got every note. And like I said, when you're working with that high a skill level, it's not hard to look good. They make us look awfully good.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's
maybe more than we deserve, but they make us look great.
Oh no, it's an incredible ensemble, and I was wondering too, because you come from the world of theater, and you've had a very successful career both writing and directing for stage. In the film, there seems to be this divide between theater and film in a way, especially exemplified in Mike Shiner's character. I was wondering, your experience working in theater, have you seen that divide firsthand between sort of people either in the theater world looking down on film or just sort of separating themselves from the film world?
I think there's an age-old battle between, film and theater. The theater folk will say, well, you in film, you get edited and you get to take it and do 7 or 8 takes, and we just get on stage and have to plow through. And there's something about film actors say about stage actors, well, everything's over the top and big, and there's not a lot of subtlety to it because you have to reach the back row of a huge theater. And I think there's always been that. I think since film has found its place and sort of replaced theater as the storytelling medium, which may be moving to television now. But I think there's always that argument. For us, it just suited it. The egos, we were going to take shots at everybody's ego. So we took shots at actors, we took shots at ourselves, we took shots at critics, and just having that sort of feud between film and theater just gave us a little extra friction, so we could get some comedy and some drama out of it,
Yeah, I think Lindsay Duncan as the theater critic was really incredible. The scene that she had with Michael, and right at the bar, and she's talking about how she's she detests, all of his work in film and putting it down. Really an incredible speech there. Really an incredible scene.
Oh, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. We wanted to, it's funny, critics have responded in strange ways about this. We wanted to give a decent argument both ways, and I think people, especially critics, can be a little sensitive because they don't get critiqued, But in this one, she makes a valid point, She says, you come in here, you've never done theater before. You come in here just because you're a star to do your own thing, and you're not trained. And she sort of takes shots at Hollywood and says, you give each other awards for cartoons and pornography. You measure your worth in weekends, and none of this is untrue. So we feel like it gives her a solid argument. And then, of course, Michael comes back with his. But we knew the scene would only work if they both could fight. If it was just Michael firing away, Regan firing away at the critic, that scene wouldn't have worked. It just would have been one way or the other. But that she's so pointed and smart about her argument in the beginning, I think, makes it a better scene, and people seem to really respond to that scene.
Yeah.
And I think that's why good dramas, it has to have conflict on both sides, not just one, because then it's just sort of a polemic, and that's not what we want.
What do you see as sort of the biggest difference for yourself between writing for the stage and writing for film or television in terms of how you structure a piece or even how you can convey certain points?
Well, I think in this case, the line was more blurred than it usually is because of the long takes and the excessive dialogue. I feel like the biggest difference normally is that in films, you write a film script by using images, and you use dialogue hopefully only when necessary, as opposed to in theater, it's all dialogue driven because you can't. So it's really two different forms altogether. Birdman is the closest thing to a marriage I've ever been through. They were all in one location and around. So it was more like writing scenes from a play than generally, because you never generally get to write 6 or 7 page scenes in a film,
Yeah, usually film scenes are very much like you're sort of like in the middle of something, or somebody hasn't like entered a room and left. It's usually just sort of little pieces. But here it's see the expanse of everything.
A page, 2 pages, 3 pages max. But in this movie, we got to do the real long monologues, which you never really see that many in film. So it was very theatrical in that sense.
Definitely. And I was wondering about the new television series you're working on now called The 1%, which I believe the first couple episodes are going to be directed by Alejandro. Is that right?
Yeah, Alejandro's. It's the same 4 creators from Birdman. It's Alejandro, Nicolas Giacobone, myself, and Armando Bo. And it's a series that we're doing for the MRC studio on the Stars Network with a great cast. Hilary Swank, Ed Helms, Ed Harris, and the writers' room opened just about 2 weeks ago. So we're in the middle of writing the first season, and sort of in the thick of it as we speak.
Wow. And sort of writing a story over such a long arc, which I believe is probably around 10 or 12 episodes. What do you think is sort of the biggest challenge in doing that as opposed to sort of coming from a screenplay?
I think exactly what you said. I think instead of 110 pages, you're looking at 500 and, you're looking at, for us, I guess around 600 pages. So it's netting out the information, keeping the drama without giving everything away, just making it be interesting while being in such long form. In the end, when you think about Alejandro or Nico or myself, or we always start from behavior, from character stuff, whether it's Beautiful or Birdman or so our TV show. I don't think it'll be no different. It'll be really sort of a character study. That's what we're comfortable with, and that's what we're trying to attempt here. Hopefully, another great cast we're blessed with, just like Birdman. Hopefully, we'll make something worthwhile out of it.
Oh, definitely. I'm looking forward to it. And just to kind of wrap everything up, I was wondering if there's a particular moment or scene in Birdman that you saw when you first saw the film that you felt like you were the most proud of, and that really was executed even beyond what your expectations were when you originally wrote the script.
I mean, for me, because I'm sort of the one on the dialogue and stuff. I think Emma Stone is sort of magical. I think that her scene with Michael, it's a long, tough monologue. And I think she delivers it so well that, I knew what it sounded like when I wrote it, and that was nothing compared to when I first saw Emma play it. And I thought that was amazing. And I do like the sort of scenes, both scenes with Ed Norton in The Critic and with Michael in The Critic. I just like the way they play. I like the friskiness between them all. So I sort of enjoy that. I guess those are my favorites.